The biggest killer of dreams, in my opinion, is having no self-belief. You can have the best hand in the world, you can be gifted everything, but if you don't have self-belief, you're never going to live up to your expectations. You're never going to achieve anything because you just don't think you're capable of anything. Believing in yourself is so important to contentment and happiness and just being able to live the life that you want to be able to live. The other day, I took that stone from my house where I'm just getting it finished to have it inscribed. That's the actual stone I carried on the day, and I picked it up and I was like, it was so heavy. I could not believe that I'd carried that. Like I cannot believe still that it was me who carried that. And it brought up this conversation around self-belief because I thought to myself, what went through my mind to genuinely believe I could carry that for 480 miles? And I was having this conversation with my brother about self-belief and how much self-belief I have. And then we sort of started talking about the journey of like, have I always been like that? Have I always had this strong self-belief that I could achieve anything? And I haven't. I gained that quite early on, but I haven't always had that. And I wanted to like break it down as to what were the key things I saw that gave me the self-belief. And I know the same for my brother William. My brother William speaks about it in this actual book, but I thought this was an interesting segue as well, is this book is a manifestation for him about his self-belief. Like at one point in his life, I think for a large time of his life, there's no way he thought he was going to be published in 15 different languages. But there was these key points along the way that gave him that self-belief. His came a lot later on in life, but mine came as a kid. And I want to talk about the key moments that I recognize back then and throughout my life, but back then those key moments and how we can change our self-belief, because the biggest killer of dreams, in my opinion, is having no self-belief, setting the goal low. And I know we've spoken a little bit about this before, but when you are not able to set a goal so high above what you're actually capable of doing, you'll never really reach your full potential. And that's where that self-belief has to be astronomical. So we're going to dive into that today. I did want to mention our sponsors, Huel. As always, I'm drinking the Black Edition. This is like my go-to lunch. 35 grams of protein, 26 vitamins and minerals, and helped me run 480 miles across the country with, minimal damage. Some would say minimal damage because I had enough protein and all the vitamins and minerals. So if you want to find out more, go to the link in the description. I'll talk about them a little bit later on in the video. So let's take me to a place where I didn't have any self-belief. And there's a couple moments in my life where I've not had much self-belief, and sometimes it creeps back into our lives. But when I was a kid, and maybe like the ages like 7 or 8, 9, 10, 11 years old, 12 years old, I didn't believe there was really anything for me to do. I was just a kid, I was having fun. But in terms of my career, I always just thought that I would, go into laboring, find a job, not follow my passions. And then as a child, I had a really interesting dynamic that led me to have very, very high self-belief. So not a woe is me moment, but my dad was not involved in my life growing up. The times that I would see him, he was, from the outside anyway, this is what I would see as a kid. I would see this quite successful person who would come in and out of our lives. And with that, he had the latest Mercedes S-Class and all the fanciest gadgets and the new mobile phones. And he would come to our house. And I remember these ones specifically. We lived in this council estate, in this council house, and like the paint was peeling off the walls. We didn't even have lino in parts of the kitchen floor. It was like concrete, then a patch of lino, and it was pretty run down house. My mum did an amazing job of running a household, but financially we weren't in the best position. But we didn't feel poor. But what would happen is my dad would come, and I remember one time specifically, we had this tiny little fold-out dining room table for 7 kids, and he dumped this big black bin bag on the table, and it hit with a massive thud. And he tipped it upside down, shook it out, and there was maybe like 30, 40,000 pounds of cash. And, you know, he was like bragging about it, showing us all this money. We didn't really know. We was like, whoa, this is amazing. And he would scoop it back up and tie it up and on his merry way. And I think it was probably just his staff's wages, I don't know. But it left me seeing something that was possible, seeing the cars, seeing the phone, seeing this wealth. But then I was in a position of poverty. So I had this understanding that poverty, you could go from poverty to this extreme wealth because I touched both ends of the spectrum physically and mentally. I'd seen it. I'd seen somebody do it. My dad was probably from what I know of him, he was from a similar situation that we were from. He was from a council estate. He was, you know, from a really poor neighborhood and a poor family, and he'd achieved this wealth. So in my head, there was no connection needed to be made. In terms of self-belief, a lot of people's self-belief is stopped by external factors. It's like our surroundings dictate our self-belief, because if you're from this area, you're not supposed to do this. So that was kind of lifted quite early on for me. And I could see this wealth, and I was like, wow, it's possible. So there was nobody who could tell me, you know, I'd go to school and someone might call me poor, or that I had no opportunity or prospects, but it kind of bounced off me because I'd seen it with my own eyes. Like, hold on a second, this person's done it, so why is that not possible? So that connection was made. So that was, you know, really important. And that's when I first discovered it. Over the next 5-10 years, that was kind of beating out of me a little bit. I had a journey with basketball, and I genuinely believed I was going to the NBA. I was training 8 hours a day. You know, I was surrounded by a great coach and mentor who told me that I was capable of amazing things in my life. The world was my oyster. He'd always told me that. And I had people around me who would tell me that I'm, you know, I've got greatness within me. That was super important. But it started to get beaten out of me after, you know, I'd struggled with basketball and struggled with my career in sports. I had no money, I had no finances. The only jobs that were available to me, because I had no qualifications, were, you know, telesales. And I was working a labor job and a telesales job on minimum wage. And my labor job was actually less than minimum wage. And I was getting paid £40 a day at the start. I went up to £50 a day, but £40 a day for, you know, 12, 13-hour shifts. And I loved it. I grinded, I hustled, I worked really hard. I actually felt like I was earning a lot of money. But I started to realize that this was the only way for me. Like there isn't an extra step. Like my extra step here is become the driver for the van, which I'd been promised actually from the get-go. I never got given it, but that was an extra £20 a day. From there, what do? I can't become the owner of the company. And that's where the belief started to come back down again. And I remember one time sat there, and I had this vision for my life that I was going to be really successful. And when I was younger, that meant wealth and money. So I had this vision for my life, but I was sat there working this minimum wage job with, you know, £300 at the end of the week. And I realized that if I keep going on this path, I've got no option. There is no way out of this. And my self-belief sank a lot. And then luckily, I had to find new perspective, shift perspective, and use a lot of the techniques that I had as a kid and I found as a kid to help get out of this. And that's what we're going to talk about right now. So the changes that needed to be made were the same changes that I had witnessed and felt and been around as a kid. Needed to happen again. I was at this midpoint in my life. I was struggling. I was starting to practice some of the things we're going to talk about, but I wasn't there yet. But the first one was I needed a change of environment. When I was working that laboring job, I was being used by the owners of the company to do this job. Absolutely fine. That was their business. They were on their journey to success. This was the deal they had set up. But I realized I had a little bit more value than that. And it was only because they valued me so low that I managed to break out of that, because I wasn't even getting paid minimum wage. So in my head, I thought, am I worthy of more than minimum wage? Yes, of course I'm worthy of more. And I rang them up and I says, hey guys, you know, I'm working like 14-hour days, 12-hour days. Like I don't think I should be getting paid £50 a day. And they said, unfortunately, Jordan, like if you wanted more money, we wouldn't be able to pay you that. I was like, okay, cool. I quit. So I quit the job and got out of the environment. So I got out of a negative environment, but then I needed to get into a positive environment. And that's where I started dreaming up the idea of what I was going to do and starting a business. And I was already hustling on the side to start my own business. But I started to surround myself with positive people and create a brand new environment. It's so important. And when I look back to that as a kid, I was somewhat blessed by my absent father's visits when he would come, because he showed me an environment that was possible. He showed me what it was perceived success, because I don't actually know the full background of what his businesses were and stuff, but it was perceived success because he had the cars, he had the money, and he showed me a way out of that. He showed me there was possibility. So although I had these two different environments I was living in a council house, I was living in and around poverty and benefits and a struggling system around me in the neighborhood, I would see the other side of that. And I also had that sprinkled in throughout my childhood. My basketball coach, he would talk to me about the NBA players that he'd trained and the environments that he'd seen and been in, and flying out to Los Angeles and playing basketball and all these amazing things. And I'd never been on a plane before, but I was hearing these stories, and I started to get to see that journey. So as a kid, I managed to build that up, but obviously it got bashed out of me a little bit. But then once all of this happened, I quit the job. I got out of that environment of this, like being locked into this happening to me, and I started to realize there's a much bigger world out there again, and I started to be able to dream bigger again. And I saved up enough money and I flew to New York. And I remember seeing New York, and I was in this incredible environment. As a kid who's never flown before on a plane, New York was my first trip that I went to. And I remember landing in New York, and the first time it was like this magical land to me. And you drive in the taxi, and you can't really see New York. It's late at night, it was foggy. And I arrived at Grand Central Station, that's where the taxi dropped us off. And I step outside the taxi and the lights are there. And this was kind of like the first experience, like the humid street heat hit me. And I'm looking up at all these buildings, like wide-eyed. And I'm like instantly realizing that somebody built this, that somebody built this concrete jungle, and I'm stood in it, and it was people's beliefs and self-beliefs that made this city possible. And I'm seeing people just walking, bashing into me, and I'm like looking up, and they're like, watch where you stand, and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, wow, this city's got so much energy. And that was another thing for me, is when I got back home from New York, I was like, possibilities are endless. Like, if I could take some New York energy and apply it to Nottingham City, I could do big things. And again, that was because I was experiencing a different environment. So yeah, it was that number one thing was the environment, removing myself from this negative environment and negative people. And not to say that there were some really nice people that I worked with, but in terms of a system and self-belief, and putting myself in a positive environment. Visiting New York was a big one for me, but being away from the negative and starting to build, my own business, my own friends in business and associates, and, starting to have those conversations with my brothers and build up this idea of like what we believe is success and what we think is a positive thing to do in this world. And those conversations started to happen. And then I would surround myself with like-minded people. Super important. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Jim Rohn said that. And I tend to agree. I try and spend my time with highly motivated, big dreamers. And this is important across your whole life. So if you're hanging around negative people with negative ideas and beliefs, that is going to bring you down. And again, that moment in my life where I quit my job, I also got rid of some lifelong friends, because there was things that they said to me that really hurt my self-belief and my dreams. And I remember one quote that really stood out was, I was sharing my dream. I was starting to get on this journey. I just quit my job and I was planning to do Mulligan Brothers and interview Conor McGregor and these amazing athletes. And I was talking about it, like, this is what we could do one day. And one of my friends said, everything that has been done, every idea that exists that can make you successful has already been done. And the only way you can become successful is by winning the lottery or getting lucky. Now, I don't know if he still believes that to this day, but I don't really hang around with that friend anymore. But to me, that was something that was quite difficult for me to mentally process, because I love this guy, but that self-talk for me was not something that I aligned with, and it's not something that I wanted to become. I believed I could achieve anything and my destiny was in my own hands. And so that had a massive impact as well, to change the circles of people I'm around. Now to this day, I find extreme value in high achievers and big dreamers. They don't even have to be successful. They just have to have the belief that they could be and the dream that anything is possible. To me, that's extreme value. I don't pick friends on that basis. It just kind of naturally happens. You vibe off each other. It's almost like a confirmation bias, and it's really important to me. It goes the same as, when we spoke to Dr. Gadsad, he said one of the two of the most important decisions you make in your life, one of them I won't talk about, but the other one was the partner that you decide to have for the rest of your life is very, very important. And that's an extremely important thing to me as well. And it's no wonder that my partner is extremely motivated she's extremely high achieving and has massive dreams. And it's almost like she has bigger dreams than me. It's the same with like some of my friends. They have bigger dreams than me. Some of my friends have achieved those dreams that I want to achieve. And all of these things, these combination of these things, it is so fulfilling and satiating to your belief. And it's very important that you surround yourself with those people and like-minded people. Just to put that simply, is like, if I said to you, we talk about nepotism quite a lot, but if I said to you, for your whole life, you would hang around with the people you grew up with. You're never allowed to jump outside of that circle. It's not to say that wouldn't be incredible. I'm just going to use this as an example. That would be wonderful to do. I still do that with most of my friends. There's some incredible friends out there that I have who are big, big dreamers, but these are the people I grew up with. But you're only allowed to hang around with those people for the rest of your life. And you're from a counselor state, and you swing it in those circles, and that's who you're allowed to hang around with. And on the other side of it, you hang around with billionaires only, and you have great relationships and great friendships with them, billionaires only. None of them are allowed to offer you opportunity. None of them are allowed to give you handouts. They're only allowed to talk to you, to your mentality, to your dreams, to what you're capable of doing, all this kind of stuff. That's the only thing that they can do for you. Under which circumstances would you be more successful? Under which circumstance would you, not more successful, sorry, would you increase your wealth? And I'm using this as a very shallow example because I don't agree with it at all. And I don't think that it's something that you should base, unless that is your goal, to be wealthy. I don't think it's something you should base friendships on. But which one would it be? And in the environment of only being able to hang around with the billionaires, of course you would be more successful. They would elevate your thought process of what is capable for yourself. You would have ideas and conversations around different methods and methodologies, and you'd pick up more information. And of course that would lead to that. And again, it's shallow. I'm not saying that you should do that unless that is your goal. I'm not saying that you shouldn't have childhood friends. I'm just trying to make a point here. I think we can all agree that would be the case. And that just speaks to the environment that you're in. If you're trying to be an artist, be around creative people. And if you're trying to be successful in anything, it's actually really rewarding to have friendships in those spaces. Like, it's the most fulfilling thing, because it's like let's say you sit down on a Friday night and you're watching something on TV and you've got your friends around you who are also filmmakers, and you both pick up something and say, look how amazing that shot is. How would they have shot that? Oh, well, they would have had a crane come in, and they're switching to a stunt actor here. And it's just exciting to talk about these ideas because you both have common interests and you both want to see each other succeed. And that's super important. And I think that's a good note to end it on. And we'll talk about circles in another video, but having friends who want to see you succeed is one of the most important things, and usually happens when you're in similar spaces as well. So that kind of leads on to having exposure to positive influencers. When you're in a situation where you don't get that, and we talk about the idea of seeing is believing. When you can see something, you can touch something, you can smell it, you can be around it, it is believing. And that's why when my dad dumped that money on the table, or I saw his nice flashy car or whatever it is, I'd seen it is possible for me in my life. But another thing around that is sometimes we don't have access to that. So I would make sure that I would have either positive people around me, like my basketball coach, that was pure luck as a kid, or I would place positive mentors and role models around me. And this is the way I would do it. The timeline for Mulligan Brothers, some people don't know. I was laboring on my job. I had a shoe company that I was running from my attic, and I also was running a gym. Financially, I was absolutely broke, but I was running all these things. I was trying to be successful. And at the time, my brother Luke, and I think William was involved at the time as well, were making motivational YouTube videos of people like Les Brown, Jim Rohn, like all these incredible speakers, Tony Robbins, and making compilation videos. And I would listen to them whilst I was packing my shoes and my orders at night on the eBay, whilst I was creating my business plan for my gym. And funnily enough, whilst I was climbing the ladder with a stack of tiles on my shoulder, whilst I was filling the skip with all the rubbish, whatever laboring job, I would have I'd have my little Walkman, I remember the wireless Walkmans that like magneted together. I would have that clicked into my ears, and I'd just be listening, working away. And I remember one of the guys one time was like, why are you listening to that? Because you could hear Les Brown just blasting through, you can be amazing, you could be great, you gotta shoot for the stars. And I'm climbing this ladder, and he's like tapping my shoulder, and like, you're right. He's like, why are you listening to that? And the way I saw it, that my brain was a sponge, and I would deliver these messages constantly, and I would just try and soak them in. What I didn't want to do is absorb the negativity that was around me, the message of my time, my worth is not even worth the legal minimum wage. What the hustle that I'm doing right now, I transformed it, and it was Les Brown talking to me about work ethic and mindset. And the reason that I was working so hard wasn't for my employer. I was working so hard for personal pride, because that's who I am, that's what I do, and that's how I want to conduct myself for the rest of my life. So I was like training my mind and my brain with these powerful messages constantly, and I started to soak it in. To this day, I find it very important to curate your social media, what you put on TV, documentaries, the films that you watch, the music that you listen to, the art that you look at, and the motivational videos that you listen to, the people that you are consuming online is so important. When I open my Instagram, I've got powerful quotes, I've got people talking about different ideas and philosophy and filmmaking and bettering myself and mindset, philosophies, self-improvement. And I do that because, not because it's like, I don't see it as not cheesy. Sometimes it is cheesy, and I get that. But the majority of the time, it's a positive effect. You want to create something in your mind that is triggering a thought-provoking moment constantly. Like, hold on a second. Maybe that applies to me. Maybe I'm not perfect. Maybe I'm at this part of my life right now, this time period. And what's interesting is social media knows us so well that you might hang on something a little bit longer than normal, and you'll go down that journey, it'll start to feed you. When you do it in a negative way, when you do it in a self-indulging way, egotistical way, when you do it in a hedonistic way, it knows, the algorithm knows, and it will destroy you. Like, you start looking at fights and cheap ways of getting wealth and rubbish music and bad messaging and negative self-talk, it knows. Like, it will start putting depressing stuff on your feed and just stuff you don't need to be seeing. Scrolling down Instagram, it will put it there, and you'll get into this negative loop. And then you will train your brain, our brains are there to be trained and affecting our synapses and neuroplasticity, I don't know, plasticity, But I think you can affect that stuff. And if you use the algorithm in a negative way, it's that you're putting yourself in that negative space again. So create the environment around you, put these mentors in place. And the last thing on that I would say that really changed my life growing up was autobiographies. I've always spoken to this, but successful people's autobiographies are very, very important to my journey. They still are. It's one of my most important pieces of information that I receive, whether it's David Goggins or some of my better ones is in business when I was growing up. I spoke a number of times about Lord Alan Sugar, Richard Branson, just people that you can find some alignment with. And for me, like someone like Lord Alan Sugar, like he grew up in a council estate in London, like I could see him hustling and his success. 50 Cent's book was a big one for me. These autobiographies are incredible because you start to, one, you got them as mentors because you're reading their words, but two, you start to make that connection again back to sort of the environment of self-belief. Seeing is believing. Reading is believing. It does help. It's better to go out there and experience it yourself, but it also does help to see somebody who did it before you.
If you lead a busy life like me and millions of other people around the world, you might be struggling to get your nutrition in. That's where this stuff comes in absolutely clutch. If health was easy, everyone would be doing it. But it should make it that easy. You scoop, you shake, and you go, and you get 26 vitamins and minerals. And every single ingredient inside this and all of Huel's other products has been expertly tested by their team to make sure you're getting exactly what you need. And if I'm really in a pinch for time, I'll grab their ready to drink, which has 35 grams of protein, 26 vitamins and minerals, and tastes delicious. Don't just take my word for it though. People like Idris Elba, Diver CEO Stephen Bartlett, and hardest geezer who ran the entire length of Africa use this as part of their daily routine. So if you want to find out more, go to the link down below. You can get exclusive offers, like if you sign up to their subscription service, you get 10% off all future orders. And if it's your first time ordering, you get a free shaker and t-shirt. It's also now available in major retailers in the UK and the US. What are you waiting for? Go get it.
One of the most important things is experiencing success yourself. So either through your own successes, your own journey, setting goal, achieving goal, or being on a journey with a friend, a mentor, or somebody that you look up to, or reading something about somebody. So seeing their journey, understanding it, and seeing them achieve success. These connections are super important. So experiencing success is very important. So how do we do that ourselves is by setting a goal and achieving it. It's quite simple. But the problem is sometimes we'll set such a lofty, non-specific goal that we never really get to experience what success means. So if I say to you, let's say my gym, for example, when I started my gym, if I had said, which I did at times, I'm going to own 50, I'm going to be the biggest gym franchise in the country for women's gyms. And that was my sole goal. If I hadn't have set a goal at the start of, I'm going to open a gym, and I just had the goal of being the biggest franchise gym, I'd never feel like I succeeded. And I almost washed out a little bit of my success with the gym because I'd set these loftier goals, but I did have smaller goals. So opening the gym on launch day felt like a success. I realized I'd won at something. Hold on a second, I built this building. We did the business model, the business plan, we did the marketing for it, and we launched with the balloons outside and everything. And there was people coming through to our building and working out. That was a success in my head. So I managed to feel like I created some success. So I'd experienced success. Then it was like, I'd set another goal, like get to capacity of 300 members. And once I achieved that, I was like, oh, I've succeeded again. And with my shoe store, it was to become a silver power seller on eBay. And I achieved it. I was like, yeah, I'm successful. And it wanted to sell my business. It was a success. We wanted to buy the studio. It was a success. And I started to experience success. But if I set my goals too lofty and I said, which I do all the time, don't get me wrong, I still do this. I want to be a $1 billion company. That lofty, non-specific goal leaves me a lot of the time thinking I'm not succeeding. And when you do that, you are not experiencing success. It's very important. I spoke about this just yesterday with the headstone. The headstone, I got it back. I said I'd be proud of myself, and I'm sat there. And maybe 3 days later, I reset a goal, a loftier goal. And I didn't sit down and soak in the fact that I'd achieved something really good. And because I did that, I wasn't getting the most out of it. It's when you succeed at something, it's very important to soak it in a little bit. Fill yourself and your self-belief with, evidence that you can succeed. You have definitely won in life at times, but comparison may be this issue in this situation. They say comparison is the thief of joy. It's so true. So if you've achieved something, take a step back, have a look at it, soak it in. Don't rest on it, don't sit on it, because obviously we want to achieve new things, but don't just disregard it just because it's not as good as Bob or Bill. Make sure that you're soaking that in. It's very, very important, because now we're building on our self-belief. You're telling yourself that you can achieve something constantly. If the instant thing you do, and I know this is the battle that we all struggle with, highly ambitious people, because this is me completely. So I'm preaching to myself here. If all that we do is when we succeed at something is we go, I could have done that better. Or I wish this would have been the case. Or next time I'm going to do this, or he's done it better than me, or I'm going to double the amount next time. That destroys your self-belief, and you are constantly putting yourself at ground zero all the time. You don't want to be starting from here every single time you set a goal. You want to build yourself up and build the evidence. So although it can be difficult, don't try and do that. Try and meditate over the things that you succeeded on. And this last week, I've been going back over the stone and thinking, you know what, that was good. 480 miles with a stone on my back. I'll take that. That's a big win. So you need to do that. You need to build that up. You need to be impressed by yourself also, but don't rest there. So then the other thing was experiencing success for somebody else. And I'll give you a very, very strong example of this for me. We were doing an interview with this CEO of Gymshark, Ben Francis, and it was just before they were valued at $1 billion. It was, they were just between us interviewing him and the release of the video, so like 2 or 3 week period, they got valued at $1 billion, and he became a billionaire. And we went down there, we did the interview, and I shook his hand and looked him in the eyes, and I was like, "You're just a normal guy. Like you are." He's got a bit of a Brummie accent. He's a normal guy. He lived in a similar house to when I grew up, similar financial situation. Started his business out of his mum's spare room. And I'm looking at him like, you're just a normal guy. And then I'm stood there in this business, a business park. Like there's like all these big businesses, and Gymshark dominates the landscape. They've got like one huge warehouse over here, another huge warehouse here, the lifting club over here. And he's like, let me take you for a tour. And we're walking in through the lifting club, and he's like, I don't even know, I've not even been through this bit yet, actually. Like I don't know what they've done yet. So it's really fun for me to come around and exciting for me to have a look. And I'm like when you started in your spare room, like, did you ever imagine? He's like, no, like not at all. Like this is just us, just constantly head down, keep working. I always thought we could be successful. I didn't know what level it was going to be, but now I'm here. And I'm looking around. It's the same experience I had when I was in New York. And I'm looking around at all these buildings, these huge buildings, and all these teams of people. And I'm looking at Ben, and I'm like, this guy right here, who is flesh and bone like me, grew up in this same country, similar kind of neighborhood, talks a little bit like me. He built all of this. I'm experiencing his success, and I'm realizing that if Ben Francis can do that, so can I. And some people might go, you couldn't build $1 billion company. You couldn't have built Gymshark. And the reality actually is that yes, you could. Yes, I could. I didn't, I haven't, but yes, I could have done. He is the exact proof that you could have done. And if you need to be able to see it like that, because if you're not, you're that friend that I grew up with who's going, well, if you get lucky, then maybe. If you win the lottery, then maybe. It isn't the case. Ben Francis was very deliberate in what he did. Yes, there was luck involved, of course, but it wasn't solely based in luck. That is not the case. You need elements of luck, but you also need very, very strong belief that you're going to be successful, and you need to be able to constantly work towards something. And, at some point, Ben Francis did believe that this is what was possible. And he believes it to this day because he's, constantly building. But if you believe solely that Ben Francis only got there because it was just luck and that was it, you're mistaken, and you will never be successful. And I know sometimes that gets a lot of backlash where people go, yeah, but you're not explaining just how much luck was involved. But if you ask me, for $1 billion company, okay, large portion of luck involved. But But to get to $1 million company as a clothing brand, to be quite successful the way he was, he could have done that with no luck. He dragged that company, as he says, by the ears, through the dirt, through the mud, and he made that successful to, a few $1 million. That is possible without luck. You want to make sure you don't have bad luck, but it's not luck. $1 billion company, maybe there was some luck involved. Maybe you hired the right people, maybe it was the right time period, maybe a few things aligned. But to be successful, no, it wasn't solely luck. And this is the thing, is people will look at somebody like Ben Francis and they'll go, the only way I could achieve that, like my friend said, is if I got really extremely lucky. And that right there, that line you draw in the sand, you will never cross it. And the reason that you'll never cross it is because your belief system will not allow you to think that unless you are getting extremely lucky in that moment, that you can even get started. And the most important thing is to get started, start working extremely hard and just keep your head down. And if you're drawing a line in the sand that you're going to need elements of luck, trust me, the moment you don't feel like you're getting luck, the moment it feels like everything's against you, you're going to be like, well, I'm not getting lucky here. Why would I continue doing it? That is the thing that's going to stop you. Some people don't get lucky, but they still get successful. So to me, it's super important. But that experience of seeing Ben do that raised the level of what I thought was successful. Before, I thought I could have a great company, be successful, Now I'm like, well, Mulligan Brothers has this ability. If I take the right steps, and I did have a little bit of luck, but I worked extremely hard and put the right people in place, Mulligan Brothers could be $1 billion company. And then, some people might go, well, that's not the case. You couldn't build that to $1 billion. Hold on a second. This guy did. The market for media is just as big as clothing. Of course, the film industry is massive. Of course, this could be $1 billion company. It's the steps that I take with inside it, whether it becomes that or not. It's the steps that my team and what we do and what we decide to do and what direction we decide to head in that dictate whether we do actually become $1 billion company. Not that that's like a very specific goal for me, but that's up to me. That's up to us. That's up to us if we aim in that direction. If I had not gone to Ben Francis and stood in his building and seen what he'd achieved, I would be aiming for a much smaller cap. And who knows, Les Brown says it, shoot for the moon. And even if you miss, you'll end up in the stars. And to me, that is the case. I will get higher than I would have got because my roof and my ceiling for what I believed was possible is higher, which means I'm aiming higher, which means that I'll probably overshoot what I would have shot for anyway. So experience somebody else's success. You can do, again, that through autobiographies, through film, through documentary. But the best thing you can do is go in there and experience it. Have different eyes, have a different mindset. When you walk into a business establishment, realize that the guy who built this, even if it's a small company, the guy that built this, he manifested everything. They brought all of this to life. And it, at one point, was in here. And once you start to realize that, and you can walk into any business and go, wow, somebody created this. This is somebody's mission, somebody's idea, and it now exists as a business. Very, very important to have that type of mindset, because then when you start doing that, you start to go, well, hold on, if they can do it, why can't I? And remove the negativity around nepotism the negative beliefs around nepotism and luck and all those kind of things. Some people have been successful without nepotism. Some people have been successful without luck. It has happened before. Some people have been successful in the face of the worst luck imaginable and the worst background and situation imaginable, but they just carried on trunching forward and getting it done. So there is no excuse. Experience someone else's success, very important. So positive reinforcement is something that I did want to speak to. Just this idea of, we've spoken about negativity and removing those people around from your circle. The most valuable person that you can find in your life, and these are very rare friends to find, is somebody who speaks positively of you and speaks highly of you and tells you that you're capable of doing things. Sometimes you don't need that. Obviously, sometimes, a lot of people who are in this position have very, very strong self-belief as they move forward. But find a friend who sees that you've succeeded, sees that you're in a magazine, or that you've just hit a certain amount of subscribers, or you've opened a new location. Find a friend that messages you, hey bro, I didn't realize you was opening a location. That's unbelievable. You're absolutely killing it. Whenever you're free, I'd love to come down and celebrate with you. Find that friend, because it's very difficult to find, people will help you along, people will do that, but celebrating somebody else's success takes a level of friend that is important. And I heard this actually, there's another level to this. I think it was in Diary of a CEO's podcast. I think it was Simon Sinek. And he said, there's levels of friendships. And that was like the highest tier. Somebody who will ring you to talk about your successes. He says, but there's one level over that. And the level over that is find a friend that you would ring to tell them about your successes. And they are very far and few between for me. I have a small handful of friends that if I won a BAFTA or hit a milestone, that I would be like, hey, did you see I won a BAFTA? And like, there'd be no, it's not about bragging. It's nothing. It's about this wholesome feeling of like, it's almost like we did it. We achieved it. And like, you're so liberated and comfortable and confident in talking to that person that you can give them something like that and it will be positively received and it'll only nourish you more. There's some people that you just can't share that with, even good friends, like, and you know who I'm talking about. Like you'd be like, hey, I did my first $1 million deal, and it might come back with jealousy, or there might be a slight look in their eye, and you pick up on something, you're like, why are they not happy for me? Like what's going on? So the friend above that is very difficult to find, but important for sure. And this is the point that I think is very important, that I actually wanted to tie back to my life growing up. And there's 3 or 4 moments throughout my life where this has happened, and it's the most important thing. I think it's actually one of the most empowering things for anybody who's watching this right now. And it may not actually apply to you, but I think it's the most powerful thing. The combination of seeing the success growing up and seeing wealth and all those kind of things was very important to me. It was evidence that I could be successful. But one of the most important things was that I had nothing to lose. I was from quite a bleak financial situation. The idea of building businesses in my neighborhood wasn't a thing. The options that you had were not many. There was nowhere to fall. There was nowhere left to fail. And I think some people are so scared of rock bottom, and they feel so disempowered and weak from a position of rock bottom. This doesn't only mean your financial situation and where you grow up. This means like maybe you've been financially destroyed recently. Maybe you lost your business. Maybe physically you've got physical goals and you're just an absolute slob. And I'm saying this because I've been there. You're overweight and obese and you're unhealthy. Maybe, all of these different things apply to you. You cannot fall any further. Being rock bottom is the best foundation for success. All of my successes came from a position of being at rock bottom. I've got nothing to lose. The most dangerous man is the man who's got nothing to lose. And it's so true. When you find people who grew up in a middle-class situation, and yes, they will get luck, and yes, they'll get nepotism, and upper-class situation, maybe that's a better example, and they'll get handouts and this kind of stuff. But massive, massive, massive success is rare among those people. And I do mean that. And people go, well, hold on a second. This guy took over from his father and runs the Fortune 500 company. It's like, that's not success. Being handed a situation where I'm stepping into the shoes of somebody else because of nepotism, it's not success. Success is going from nothing to something. That's success. And you have the ability, because you're at rock bottom, because you're in a difficult position, because you're down, you have the only opportunity to rise. And it's like, that's so undervalued. And this idea that we're weak because we're in a poor position, we're weak because we don't have nepotism or opportunity, is just rubbish. I promise you that. The 4 situations I think of through my life were absolute rock bottoms. I did not see a way out of it at the time, but I did face forward and I decided to march forward from that position. I was the most powerful, the most strong I'd ever been when I was in that position, because everything is, almost everything seemingly is like life or death. Like if I do this, I know where I go back to. I don't want to be back there. I don't want to do this again. I don't want to keep doing this. So it was the most important thing for me, knowing that I was coming from this position. It's like, accept it, accept. Right, financially right now, I've got no money. I'm in a difficult position. I don't really see any possibility or any way out of this. So what have I got to lose? What have I got to lose in taking an opportunity on that business plan? What have I got to lose in, making that investment or trying this new strategy? What have I got to lose? I'm already in the worst position I could possibly do. I can't make it much worse. I know how it feels to have no money or not be able to afford food. I know what it feels like to be depressed or overweight. Like, I'm already massive. I'm already overweight. Why don't I give this diet a go? Why don't I take the opportunity to succeed? And that is the most powerful thing. And I think we all have our own rock bottoms. The definition of rock bottom for somebody might be financially, it might be emotional, it might be that you just lost somebody, it might be that you lost your business, or it might be, the physical situation that you're in. It could be any one of those things. But my point is that when you hit those rock bottoms and you have those difficult moments, that is where you're most powerful. And it goes the same for difficult situations. Difficulties and roadblocks and things that are obstacles that are stopping you, overcoming them only makes you stronger and more powerful. Don't worry about failing. The most important thing you can do is overcome those and experience failure as well. But yeah, the most important thing is to recognize that you are at rock bottom or you are in a difficult situation, but that is not the end for you. And actually, I can be extremely powerful and extremely dangerous from this position. When I say dangerous, I mean dangerous towards your goal because you're about to slay it. Okay, so I want to land on this because I think this is one of those conversations, especially, our audience, you guys, some of you, we've got the two polar ends of the spectrum. And I think we're all trying to meet in the middle somewhere, and we're trying to take from both ends of the spectrum. So I want to try and put this here. Confidence is not arrogance. Being confident in yourself is not arrogance. Do not allow somebody to tell you that you're egotistical, you're arrogant, to destroy your self-belief. Being confident, believing in yourself is so important to contentment and happiness and just being able to live the life that you want to be able to live. Do not allow people to beat you down and tell you that you're arrogant or you're cocky. That is not what confidence is. Confidence is silent. That's what, insecurity is allowed. So that's a quote that I've written down here. Confidence is silent, insecurity is allowed. That's where ego and arrogance is. In loudness, in brashness, is screaming it from the rooftop. You don't need to scream it. You feel it. So that's what confidence is. And it's super important that people are going to pick up on that. You don't have to shout about it, you don't have to scream about it for people to hear your confidence. Confidence is, I could see somebody walking through the street and you feel different and you walk different and you talk different and you share your dreams differently. It's not about being loud or brash. It's not about beating people down with those dreams, but people will pick up on it. And this is where you're going to find, when you find that confidence and you start working towards it, you'll find if that circle of friends around you is the right circle of friends, because they will pick up on your confidence too. Some people aren't going to like that. Some people are going to realize that might mean that you're going to grow. And I always said this, you are a mirror that you're holding up to them, especially this is the hometown friends. You are a mirror that you're holding up to them, because if you can become successful, that mirror shows to them that they could have been successful too. And people don't like that. And that's where the idea of only if you get lucky comes in, only if you win the lottery and those kind of things come in. Because if it wasn't luck, if it was the fact that you worked hard and you had a great idea, why couldn't they have done it? And that hurts people. And that's where you're going to find out as your confidence grows and they start to pick up on that, whether that friendship group supports you and wants to grow with you, or just at least cheer from the sidelines, or whether they're going to try and drag you back down to make sure that they've still got their friend, because they don't want to lose your friendship. So yeah, that is sort of the steps and the advice for self-belief for me. So many people are trying to be successful out there, and I think self-belief is the biggest thing that's going to stop us. Not being able to set your dreams high, not being able to, stop the negative self-talk and the negative self-doubt and dream beyond the situation you're given or dream beyond the situation that you're in. That's what's going to stop you. So self-belief is one of the most crucial factors. I always say this, self-belief and hard work will get you so far in life. Yes, luck and other things might help, but I promise you can be extremely successful, extremely happy and content with just self-belief and a lot of hard work. I hope that's helped some people. And, like I said, this came from this stone. Looking back even now, I know I did it. I know I can do it. But there's a lot to that journey that was very, very difficult. And if I'd gone into that journey with no belief that I could do it, I promise you I wouldn't have made it past the first mile. And that was the thing with that stone, is this naivety that I had going into that was that I could do it no matter what, and my mentality could see me through, and I just had an abundance of self-belief, and that's why I was able to do it. But I promise you, if I had to build that self-belief on the way, or if I had to if I had external factors telling me, yeah, you can do it, I wouldn't have made it. It had to come so deep and so far from within, and that's the only reason that I managed to succeed on that. And it's the only reason I've managed to succeed in anything that I've done in life, is that I have an abundant self-belief. I really believe that I can win a BAFTA. I do really believe that. I really believe that I can build this company into, $1 billion company. I do believe that. But it doesn't mean that there's not lows along the way. It doesn't mean that, I get knocked down. It doesn't mean that other situations are going to throw me down into rock bottom. But the self-belief's always there. And, all these external factors can happen to you, but it doesn't matter if you don't have self-belief. You can have the best hand in the world, you can be gifted everything, but if you don't have self-belief, you're never going to live up to your expectations. You're never going to achieve anything because you just don't think you're capable of anything. So it doesn't matter if you're broke as a joke or you're super rich. If you don't have self-belief, none of it matters. So you need to get that ingredient right. Anyway, guys, I hope that's helped somewhat. I'd love to hear some of your thoughts down below. And I know I mentioned William's book earlier. One of the best manifestations of self-belief right there. William's book is always linked down below, The Everyday Stoic, how you can apply Stoic principles to your life. But pretty proud brother moment that is. Anyway, guys, hope you have a blessed and productive day. Hit the notification bell as always, the like button, please. Comment, drop a comment, go drop a comment and share this video with somebody. YouTube's algorithms kind of kill us off because we don't usually do any call to action. So let's maybe try and bump this one up a little bit. What else can you do? And if you want to, you can hit the join button down below for members. Anyway, guys, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.